Hello everybody, it's Grandmama. Time for another story. Today's story, The Vanishing Houseboat by Mildred A. Wirt. Chapter 1, A Sandwich at Rennie's. You know, Lou, I've been doing a lot of wondering here of late, remarked Penny Parker to her chum Louise Seidel. The girls were riding in Penny's mud-splattered blue coupe, otherwise known as the Leaping Lena. At the moment, Lena was bouncing more than usual, for the pavement was bumpy in that section of Riverview. Wondering what? Inquired Louise, absently brushing a wisp of brown hair from her eyes. Wondering if maybe there isn't something wrong with me. Penny replied with a grin. My appetite doesn't seem to be normal. Oh, why beat about the bush? Countered Louise. Why not come right out and admit you're hungry again? Or maybe again is the wrong word. I should have said yet. Well, I could do with a lunch. What about at Rennie's? We're close there now. Rennie's would suit me, Louise nodded. They have perfectly gorgeous sandwiches. Ham and cheese, olives, lettuce, and mayonnaise on a toasted bun. All for 25 cents. What, no mustard? Penny laughed. Well, that sounds good to me. Suppose we try it. She guided the coupe into a rectangle of spaces by the curb and ruefully dropped a nickel into the parking meter. If we're not back here before the old machine clocks off an hour, I'll get a parking ticket, she warned her chum as they started towards Rennie's Cafe. We'll have to work fast on those sandwiches. Oh, your father knows all the policemen in town, Louise said carelessly. He could get the ticket fixed. He could, but he wouldn't. You don't know Dad, Louise. Penny liked to believe that her father, Anthony B. Parker, editor and publisher of the Riverview Star, ruled his only daughter with a hand of iron. Actually, he was very indulgent and made few rules, but those few rules he expected her to obey. One of his pet rules was that Penny must live within her weekly allowance, and this she found trying, for Leaping Lena had a persistent habit of running up an expensive repair bill. The girls entered Rennie's, which at the hour of 3 was quite deserted. They sought a booth at the rear of the room and waited for the waitress to bring them a menu. Complacently, Louise studied her reflection in the mirror. She had dark brown eyes and a slight plump oval face. In contrast, Penny was an outright blonde with curls combed back over her shapely ears, bringing well-molded features into prominence. Both girls were dressed very much alike, in white blouses with dark skirts. A waitress in a neat starched green uniform arrived with the water glasses and the menu cards. Penny glanced up in astonishment, for she recognized the girl. Why, Laura Blair, she exclaimed. I didn't know you worked here. I've only had the job a week, the waitress admitted, speaking in low tones so the proprietor would not hear. Penny studied Laura with interest, reflecting that in the years since the girls had left Riverview High School, she had grown thinner and much older looking. It was plain that things had been going none too well with Laura. Otherwise, she would not have been working as a waitress at Rennie's. How do you like it here? Louise questioned curiously. Laura glanced again towards the front of the cafe before she answered in a bitter tone, I hate it. Mr. Rennie works me every instant of the time, and he's always berating me for mistakes. Then why don't you leave? Asked Penny. Couldn't you find other work? I doubt it. I tried everywhere before I accepted this position. It seems no one wishes to hire an inexperienced person these days. I should have taken more practice and more practical subjects in school. You're living with your parents, I suppose, remarked Louise. Laura gave her a queer, strained look. Didn't you know? She asked quietly. My parents were killed in an auto accident just a month after I left Riverview High. Oh, I'm so sorry, Louise murmured. We hadn't heard, Laura. Father always was so careless in his driving. I guess the accident was his fault. I can't tell you about it now. Mr. Rennie's watching. Your orders, please?" "A number 3 special with hot chocolate," Louise said automatically, while Penny added, "Make mine the same." Laura nodded and went quickly through the swinging doors to the kitchen. "No wonder she seems so changed," Louise said, staring at Penny across the table. The news regarding Laura's parents had shocked them both. "If the accident was her father's fault, I suppose not a cent of compensation was paid," Penny commented. "Poor Laura. And I've always heard this was a hard place to work. I don't think Laura is strong enough to be a waitress." "No, she's delicate." Penny frowned and studied the pattern of the inlaid table. Presently Laura returned from the kitchen bearing a tray of sandwiches and chocolate. She handed her burden awkwardly to the girls and saw Mr. Rennie watching disapprovingly from behind the soda fountain, while the girls was easing the tray on a nearby table. He came towards her, saying in a curt tone, "Try to work with more speed, Miss Blair. Our customers expect quick service." "Yes, Mr. Rennie," murmured Laura. She placed a cup of chocolate at Penny's elbow, but nervously set it too close to the edge of the table. A moment later, in reaching across to deposit the plate of sandwiches, her arm brushed against it. Penny saw the cup sliding and tried to rescue it, but in vain. The cup of steaming liquid crashed to the floor, splattering Laura's shoes and uniform. She was not burned, but the chinaware smashed into a dozen pieces. Mr. Rennie descended upon the horror-stricken girl. "You've broken another dish," he said in a quiet but cutting tone. The second this week." I'm terribly sorry," Laura stammered. "It really was my fault, I think," Penny said, determined to take the blame. "My hand probably brushed against the cup." "I saw exactly what happened," Mr. Rennie replied. "Miss Blair, clean up this mess. The cashier will settle with you." "You're discharging me?" the girl gasped. "Oh, Mr. Rennie." "You are through here," the man repeated coldly, "and don't ask me for a recommendation." Laura turned and went slowly to the kitchen. When she came back a moment later with a cloth to wipe up the spilled chocolate, her face was very white. "Don't worry, Laura," Louise whispered encouragingly. "You'll find a better job. Mr. Rennie is an old slave driver anyway." The girl didn't reply. She kept her head bent low as she mopped the floor. "Laura," said Penny, "how long will it take you to change your uniform?" "About 5 minutes." "Then meet us outside as soon as you can. Louise and I would like to talk with you." Laura nodded and returned once more to the kitchen. A minute later, Mr. Rennie brought Penny a fresh cup of chocolate. "I'm sorry you had been annoyed," he apologized in a purring voice. "Is everything quite satisfactory now?" "No, it isn't, Mr. Rennie," Penny returned bluntly. "I don't care for the flavor of your chocolate. In fact, I don't care for the flavor of anything in this place." Having delivered this impertinent, she clicked the 50-cent piece on the table, arose, and walked out of the cafe. Louise hastily followed, but once outside the building, she remonstrated with her chum. "We might at least have eaten the food since we paid for it." "I'd starve before I'd touch anything at that place, Lou. I'll never set foot in here again, not after the way he acted." The girls returned to the coupe, there to wait the arrival of Laura. Soon she emerged from the cafe wearing a coat and a hat and carrying a paper bundle under her arm. Louise made room for her in the front seat. "It was kind of you to wait," Laura said in a discouraged voice. "May we take you home?" Penny inquired, starting the car. Laura said that she lived at a rooming house on Bancroft Street, and Penny turned the car in that direction. As they threaded through the dense traffic, no one spoke. At last, Louise broke the silence. "Have you any idea what you'll do, Laura?" "I'll try for another job. If I don't get one, then I may starve." "Oh, surely it's not that serious," said Penny. "Well, not quite. I have about $25 saved, and if the worst came, I could go to Chicago and live with a cousin, if she'd take me. But Ellen has 4 children and can't afford to help me. Maybe Dad could use you at the newspaper office, Penny said thoughtfully. Can you run a typewriter? Laura shook her head. No, it's more than kind of you, Penny, but we both know I'm not trained for newspaper work. Perhaps you could find a position as companion to someone, suggested Louise, hopefully. You've studied French and music. I'd like such a job, said Laura, smiling. Unfortunately, I can't locate any. I do know of a place where I might find housework. She opened her purse and withdrew a clipping torn from the newspaper's morning edition of the Riverview Star. This sounds fairly good, she remarked, reading the advertisement aloud. Wanted, girl for general housework. Board, room, $5. Apply at the Old Mansion, White Falls. The pay isn't very high, Penny remarked. No, but with room and board, I'd not have many expenses. However, I can't apply for the place because the bus doesn't run down that way. Mine does, Penny smiled. I'll take you to White Falls if you wish, Laura. Oh, I'd be so grateful. Could you be ready in 15 minutes? Penny asked, glancing at her wristwatch. Yes, it won't take me long to pack my suitcase. That will be just give Lou and me time to tell the folks where we're going, Penny declared. She dropped Laura off at her rooming house on Bancroft, promising to return for her in a few minutes. Then she drove Louise home, and upon gaining Mrs. Seidel's consent for the trip, telephoned her father at the Star office. Go right along, Mr. Parker assured her. What time will you get back from White Falls? Probably not until after dark, Penny returned. Please let Mrs. Weems know I'll not be home for dinner, Dad. Mrs. Weems, the family housekeeper, had cared for the girls since the death of Penelope's mother many, many years ago. I'll tell her, Mr. Parker promised. Drive carefully, Penny. Returning to Bancroft Street, the girls found Laura waiting on the front porch with her suitcase. The luggage was stowed in the rear of the coupe, and they drove out the south road, which led through 15 miles of rolling country to the town of White Falls, located on the Cobalt River. During the ride, Laura was by turns talkative and morose. Finding the girls sympathetic listeners, she told them of her difficulties since graduating from school. Her parents had left her with more debts than money, and after the estate had been settled, nothing was left. She had worked in a 10-cent store and in a cafeteria, but neither position had proven satisfactory. I haven't been very lucky, she declared. It wouldn't surprise me a bit if this housekeeping job is gone before we get to White Falls. Well, I hope not, Penny said cheerfully. Secretly, she was alarmed for the fear they might be delayed by the rainstorm. Angry-looking clouds were scuttling like sailboats across the sky. Presently, she called Louise's attention to them. Oh, the sun is shining, her chum answered carelessly. It won't rain for hours. However, before they had covered 2/3 of the distance to White Falls, the gathering clouds blotted out the last patch of blue. The air cooled rapidly so that Louise rolled up the car windows to protect them from the chilling wind. It was rapidly growing darker, and now and then a vivid flash of lightning cackled across the sky. How fast the storm is rolling up, Laura observed nervously. Will we reach White Falls before it breaks? Not a chance, said Penny. The rain is coming now. From the direction of the Cobalt River, they could see a great white sheet sweeping nearer and nearer. A few drops of rain splattered the windshield, and then the deluge descended. The pavement became a lake, and Penny could not see many feet beyond the headlights. This is a regular cloudburst, she gasped. Maybe we should pull up under the tree, Louise suggested anxiously. You're apt to run off the road. If I stop and shut off the motor, the engine wires may get so wet from the driving rain that we won't be able to get it started again until the storm is over. I believe it's better to keep going." Before the coupe had traveled much further, it became apparent to Penny that her decision had been unwise. The rain was coming down harder every instant. A coughing gasp from the engine warned her that the motor might die at any moment, leaving them stranded in the middle of the road. "We'll have to pull up somewhere," she admitted. "I see a building just ahead," Louise cried, peering through the rain-splattered glass. "It looks like a shed. And the door is open. Or rather, there isn't any door," Penny exclaimed. "A welcome poured in a storm." Without noticing that smoke issued from the rear of the building, she turned the car and drove into the shed. Do, 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 do.